Okay, it could be an objective truth. You're just not aware of it, right?
So we
You have no
are
way
trying
of
to do the
telling.
best that we can to survive in this world with the information that we have, which makes
but
sense to use that information, right?
right.
And that is our objective truth right now. We know that 2 + 2 = 4. We know that the sun's going to rise like next morning because it's been consistently like that. That's our hard
So
science.
objective truth.
Huh?
Well, as you said, it's our objective truth.
That is our understanding of what we have figured out so far.
He also said that the sun's is tomorrow. Hard science.
That what?
Yeah, that's Cracker. You said the sun's rising tomorrow. We're going to rise tomorrow. That's our hard science. Don't you even realize the words that are coming out of your mouth?
Oh my god.
You don't think we orbit the sun as a hard science?
Holy fucking shit.
No.
Gotta cook a little kiwi.
If it was a hard science, quote unquote, then it would actually use science to come up with the conclusion. So, can you please tell me where the science is that came up with the conclusion of orbiting the sun?
I guess I'm curious, do you guys...
But she don't have no objective truth to prove that.
I'm curious, when it comes to any type of science outside of this Earth, do you guys kind of, like, how do you guys not see that as hard science? Where do you guys stand on that?
Science outside of Earth.
I mean, to be
science,
I'm out, dudes. I'm out.
Yeah.
So you guys don't think that there's science outside of Earth, like this planet?
No.
Okay, so science only exists on Earth.
Yep.
Well, what's science?
You ever seen an experiment done on another planet?
First, what's science? What would be natural science?
So there's pseudoscience, there's hard science, there's a spectrum of science, and it's all
science? What is science?
Well, it's coming up with a hypothesis, a theory, testing it, and trying to get consistent results.
What is the purpose of the hypothesis?
To seek further truth.
You just contradict yourself in terms, right?
How so?
Okay. Let's back it up for a second. Have you ever heard this term, the scientific method? Have you ever heard that before?
Yes.
Okay, so what is the scientific method? What are the steps?
Don't know it off the top of my head. Bullet point. Let me see.
Well, you just said hypothesis. That's the scientific method, how you construct it.
That's part of the scientific method.
It is a scientific method. What is the steps to help construct a hypothesis?
Yeah, I can iterate that here. There's 7 steps. So the question, the research, you make a hypothesis based off that, you experiment, data analysis, conclusion, and communication.
Communication?
Communication? Yes. Scientific method? That's what you believe that is?
That's the 7 steps.
What communication?
You're wrong.
Okay. It says in their experiment, right? So what are the constituent parts of a scientific experiment?
So you put all the variables of your hypothesis and you test it over a series of time to see if you get consistent results.
What variables?
That's pretty vague.
Well, that depends what you're trying to test and what, like, I mean, there's many fields of science.
What variables? What are they called?
What do you mean?
Like in a classical experiment, there's particular variables. They have names. There's at least 3 of them.
Okay.
You need 3.
So I feel like you're trying to allude to something particular, and it'd be a lot easier if you just kind of tell me what you're trying to get at.
You're trying to see what is your scientific acumen. What you seem like you don't know what.
So
science.
I'm asking you guys if you guys don't consider that there is science or hard science outside of Earth. So I'm asking you guys that.
Because you don't know what science is for you to say hard science, pseudoscience, and things of that nature.
Yeah, is hard science just difficult for the user to operate in? or is that easy science? I'm not
So
sure. What
hard science
There's
is
also soft science. Don't forget the soft science.
so yeah, there is pseudoscience. Like psychology is in between pseudo and a little bit of hard science, and then pseudoscience can be more like
Oh my
consciousness
God.
and things like that. Neuroscience is more hard science. There's surgical procedures for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the guy who coined the term pseudoscience in the mainstream literature, his definition of it is things that are purported to have gone through the scientific method when in fact they have not. So there is a method that excludes certain things from being science. Now, when it comes to the physical and natural world, the first thing you have to do is observe a natural phenomena. That's step one. Step two is you formulate a hypothesis, which is a suppositional statement of a cause and effect for the natural phenomena that you saw. You then formulate an experiment based on your supposition with an independent variable and a dependent variable, and the third variables would be control variables. So what you're looking for is direct manipulation of the independent variable by the researcher to cause the dependent variable to alter, so that you can see that the one is caused by the other, and you exclude the control variables to make sure they're not screwing up your results. Now, when it comes to most things that exist beyond the tangible access of the Earth, the ability to manipulate the independent variable is impossible. So it can't be science in that way.
So, do you believe that meteorology is a science?
Nope.
No.
But what's meteorology?
Well,
The
I don't
weather.
know. You seem to give me like a massive breakdown of everything science. You don't know meteorology.
If you're talking about the weathermen, they're wrong all the time.
So
So
it's
how could
just a study of weather.
right studying weather, right?
Hmm.
But they're necessarily manipulating the independent variables for their results to get a cause, right? That's why they're
That was more observational study.
Yeah, but
So
let's
you
be
don't think
clear.
it's science?
Hold on. Their predictions throughout antiquity are sometimes accurate and sometimes not accurate, right?
Hmm.
Never just count on the weatherman to be giving you the 100% truth, right?
Well, it's not. The weatherman is the medium of communicating the results of the calculations, not the actual. Like meteorology is a field of like
Then
where
that's
scientists
math.
try to study.
Then that's
So
So
math.
where's the disconnect between the cause and effect where they can't accurately give me what's going to happen?
So
Because they
meteorology, like the field of study, that's what I'm asking. I'm not talking about the weatherman that's talking about what a bunch of scientists are telling him to say. That's just a guy in front of a TV. I'm talking about the study of meteorology. Do you believe that's a science?
Where's the cause and effect relationship in meteorology?
You said where's the cause and effect?
Where's the cause and effect relationship? You tell us.
Yeah, to be fair, look, we got to back up a second. To be fair, if you take science as a term and you use the roots of it, and it just means to know or a field of knowledge, then you could apply the term science to literally anything and everything, and therefore it's no longer exclusatory. There's no speciality to it. So you could call working on cars science. You could call making dinner science. You could call anything science.
I mean, yeah, baking has so it's relying heavily on looking on quantitative data and like analyzing the statistics of being able to consistently produce something, right? Like that is you're studying the possibility of being able to reproduce it and the consistency of it. And the more consistent it becomes, the harder science, quote unquote, it becomes. When it starts leaning towards pseudo, it's because there's lack of evidence or lack of consistency, right? But it's kind
No,
of what
that's
we more or less grasp or understand of it so
no
far. That is.
pseudoscience by definition hasn't gone through the rigors of the scientific method and is being presented as if it has. That's what pseudoscience is. So if you say I have a scientific field and nothing in your field is accessible to experimentation, then you don't have a science.
You're saying that
If it's
nothing
all
in pseudoscience goes through the scientific method?
Yeah, that's the definition. If it doesn't go through the scientific method, it's pseudoscience.
Okay.
Now,
So
hold on a second, Drew. If it's being presented as if it's a science and it hasn't gone through the scientific method and it's not accessible by the scientific method, then it's pseudoscience.
okay, but what I'm asking is, do you feel like meteorology is a science?
And in the manner in which I parsed out, no.
You don't think that the field of meteorology is not constantly going through the scientific method?
Dude, where are the researchers manipulating the weather to see the effect? They're not.
Okay, so then that's a no. You don't think it's a science.
Has
I guess this is
anyone
kind of like a yes or
told
no.
her? Has anyone explained to you what an independent and dependent variable is in a scientific experiment?
What?
No,
Explain.
I guess not.
Stupid.
So the scientific method is really not that deep or complex. It is just a step to see about consistent result. And there are labels for each one of those steps, but it's the process of going through the scientific method to get it.
Yeah, steps in the scientific method has steps as well. We just explained it to you.
Yeah. And now if there's lack of evidence and not consistent results, like in those steps or what all like that you cannot
It's not
perform
the
that scientific method,
He just
then that is
explained
pseudo.
that is not the scientific method. He just explained it to you.
So I'm literally reiterating that if you cannot produce a scientific method, then yeah, you're like not producing the scientific method.
Yes,
Like I'm not disagreeing with that.
Yeah,
yes, it's not presented cause and effect relationship within meteorology, right? You don't have a cause variable, which would independent variable that you are manipulating in a scientific experiment, then it is not being presented as a scientific method, which means that it don't have an actual scientific theory behind it.
correct. So in other
So
words, there's many things out there that could fall under the auspices of the loose term field of knowledge science. But when they apply the term science, most people think, oh, it's gone through the scientific method when it
but
hasn't.
it so
Problem.
so then let me break down because I've studied meteorology quite a bit. And that's why I'm kind of curious on where you guys are on a little bit on that spectrum. So in the first step of like the scientific message, like observation, they do observe satellite readings, radars, even weather balloons and everything like that. Hypotheses are formed based on the consistency of those ratings. They start experimenting using mathematical models to simulate the atmospheric like pressure and weather conditions. They start collecting data based on those experiments. Then the analysis is they integrate observed data into models and then keep on correlating and improving the accuracy. And then they peer review each other and then they try to replicate it. And most of the time, even though it's not 100% accurate, it is like a good 80% accurate most of the time. So it does go through the methods. It does go through the sequence.
That is not the scientific method. That's
Not
done
going
on a test and correlation.
Don't panic. Never once in what you said did the researcher manipulate an independent variable in reality to see what happened. Never once in what you just described. So it's not going through the scientific method.
Yeah, it's a mathematical correlation.
Oh, okay. Now I think I am getting lost. What do you mean by, so you're saying that, what do you mean by manipulating one of the variables? So just to make sure we're on the same page.
Yeah,
The stricture scientific method says that the independent variable must be directly manipulated by the researcher.
Mm-hmm.
So in the case that you say, oh, well, a rise in heat, right, causes this, gust of wind over here, right?
So that's part of the experimentation stage, and they work with different simulation of models. They go through different variables.
But a simulation isn't an experiment.
It's yes, it is.
No, it's
If you're running like point A and point B simulation side to side constantly, and you're getting like consistent results and everything, you are going through the experimentation stage. That's what a lot of experimentation goes in a lot of processes.
what consistent results mean in a simulation anyway.
What?
Yeah. What does consistent results mean in a simulation, and why should anybody care?
So I'll put it like in a little bit more of like marketing. I'm going to use marketing for an example, right? So let's say you use point A, an email that uses a very specific copy, very specific lingo, and then you send out a different email and you slightly change up the lingo, and you send them both out, and they're both getting drastically different results. And now you do another point A and point B email and keep changing it up. You try to keep finding the consistency between of what is getting the most results. Those are simulations.
That's called a
Because-
test. It's a test. That is not an experiment. It's just not science. Just don't
Yeah,
use the word and you're fine.
but you got a consistent problem of just skipping to the word results without actually explaining anything about it.
Because you're calculating the data of the results that you're getting, right? Like, because you're going to get drastically different results with every experiment. Like, when you get an experiment, you will get a result, whether it's a failed result or a successful result, and then you study why it failed or why it did succeed. That's part of the experimentation.
Didn't we just explain the correlation to her earlier? Or did you explain it to her AI?
I'm getting the hint that she hasn't been explained what the scientific method is because she certainly doesn't know. And she just keeps repeating herself.
I do think we probably have a different mindset of what the scientific method is.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. You have a method where you don't directly manipulate the independent variable and you think you've done science. That's the problem.
All right. Okay, so then get me to understand where you guys are coming from instead of coming at it from a condescending way, because that doesn't help me understand. It really just doesn't. So, what is an example? Let's start like, what do you guys consider an official hard science?
The most simple experiment I've seen, and I'm not going to start from the very beginning and each step of the way because I'll let someone else explain it, to manipulate the buoyancy in water. They directly increase the salinity of the water by actually manipulating the salinity of the water by adding salt. Then seeing the effect. And that develops a cause and effect relationship. They can vary and manipulate directly the amount of salinity in the water and measure the buoyancy change. That is cause and effect.
But okay, so I guess what I'm asking is, what is specific field of hard science that you guys do think is a hard science? Because I know you gave an example.
Physics.
Chemistry.
Okay. Okay. So you guys see chemistry as a hard science.
Physics, natural science.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a problem with models. Yeah, the problem with models is that if you don't tangibly have access to the particulars that you input into the model, and you're just speculating on what it is, and then you create a quote unquote consistent result, which backfeeds your bias that you had in the beginning that you were correct, you could be making a model that has consistent results, but yet doesn't represent reality. And then you could then say, this is how reality works, and you'd be wrong. Because models, right, aren't necessarily reality. And that's just the facts.
So you guys are pretty much saying if something can't be like, if you can't involve your hand very strongly directly in there to manipulate a variable to change up pretty much the what you're seeing for data, then you guys don't consider it like
That is the definition.
Like astronomy and geology.
It's not us. That's what science
It's just
is.
reality. Yeah, look, I just want to make this clear. I just want to make this clear for everyone listening. Not every proposition can be accessed by or arbitrated by the scientific method. The scientific method is not the single thing that we use to come to truth statements, and it can't be applied to all propositions. So yeah, that means some things aren't science. It's just that simple.
well, yeah, because I've stated that there is pseudoscience. Like I understand that there's things that are not science. I'm trying to figure out where you guys, because I know where I kind of come from, but I'm trying to understand what spectrum you guys consider what is hard science and what isn't.
We're on the spectrum, guys.
You ain't what is natural
Yes,
science?
science.
I mean, look. I know it's hard, but we already told you like 17 times in a row that if you can't directly manipulate the independent variable to affect the dependent variable in reality, then it isn't science or quote unquote hard science, if you want to use that term. So that's the standard.
So
So
I
everything. So hold on a second. Everything, every single thing that can't follow that stricture, I would say everyone in this room who shares my view would say is
Mhm.
not science or not hard science, depending on how you look at the term.
So I'm double checking myself and I'm looking up and down in different areas. I'm going right now here, Google Scholar. I'm even just hitting up ChatGPT. I'm even just hitting up Google just because, like a quick scan. Nothing is indicating that manipulating a variable is a strict requirement for using the scientific method. So I guess where's that source coming from?
You say you get from ChatGPT.
So I just looked up here on Google Scholar. It manipulate a variable requirement for the scientific method. We're seeing here it's not a strict requirement. I also did pull up ChatGPT and I also did look up Google. Nothing is indicating that the ability to manipulate a variable is a strict requirement for a
That's
scientific method.
I could
So,
care less about ChatGPT and
would
Google.
definitely tell you
okay, but then where are you
ChatGPT.
guys? But it's
Just
even
hold
like,
on
I
a
mean,
second. Just
yeah,
hold on. Before we even go forward, let's
sure.
be clear. ChatGPT and Google are not sources. Period.
Okay, can you provide me with
I
your
hope we all
sources?
agree. No, no, wait a minute. You saying that like you've provided some.
I mean, I can provide actually probably like 15 of them right now if you want.
Stop the cap.
Where do you want me to paste them?
You could provide 100 opinion pieces, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if everyone has a differing opinion, or they have 17 steps here, 15 steps there, 4 steps there, okay. But let's be clear. You asked what is our view on what is hard science. So
So
if
yeah,
I tell you my view, I do not need a source for my view. I am the source.
so now so your source is that you made it up? Like what I'm asking is where are you drawing that
Okay, let's be
information
clear.
from?
Let's be clear. Let's be clear. You asked, what do you consider hard science?
I
Yes or
did.
no?
I did, but you're
Okay,
the one
so
saying this is a hard
I don't.
definition. You've been the one stating that. So you're
That's
saying that like
fair.
it's factual. So where's that coming from? Is what I'm asking.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that's coming from the inception of the scientific method.
Okay, where are you drawing that information from? Or is that just what feels right?
No, that's from history.
So are you saying
Bruh.
that when you looked on Google and looked up what the scientific method is, you're saying that the
Um, I mean,
variable
I have right now saying that manipulating the variable is not a requirement from the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, American Association for
Wrong.
Advancement of Science, the National
that's
Science
not
Foundation,
no,
the
Google
U.S. Geological
No.
Survey.
no,
So
we
these are
asked
actual.
you what is the
This
we
is not
asked you
Google.
what is
This is
the
not Google.
actual no. We asked you what is the actual steps within the scientific method. You're saying that the independent variable being manipulated is not in it.
Well,
Because
all these.
I'm on ChatGPT right now, and ChatGPT is
Uh-huh.
basically on the independent variable. You want me to read that?
It's saying that a manipulative variable is a strict requirement. Is that what it's saying?
It's a
But if you
requirement.
don't think about it this way, the guys who made up the scientific method were philosophers and scientists.
So then why do we
They
care
weren't
about you're locked on their definition of it then?
No, it's not about definitions. It's about logic.
But
Okay,
then,
let's
but
be
you're the
clear.
one that brought up
Here,
like that's what you
just
kept
hold on.
repeating quote unquote 14
Hey,
times.
that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. But I don't need to appeal to that alone. I can appeal to logic.
Okay, so we're backpedaling.
No, I'm not
So it's now a
backpedaling at all.
definition type thing.
Okay, listen. You can either let me speak and tell you what I think, or you can try to gaslight me, yourself, and the audience. Which one?
Okay, well, before you do, I just want to make sure, is this just simply what you think, or do you have a source? I'm glad to hear either. Like, I'm not opposed to hearing either.
Okay.
But I wanna know.
Let's be clear. Let's be clear. Okay.
Yes.
See if you can follow this train of thought.
Okay.
If I can present a logical argument to where my position is rationalized through logical sequence, that to me seems that it can't be otherwise, then
Okay.
that alone is a valid reason. I do not need anybody else.
I mean, I agree. That'll definitely be your truth, for sure.
There is no your truth.
What? Yeah, there is no your truth law of identity violation. There is no your truth law of excluded
Well, I
middle
mean, you're literally
violation.
telling me that
There
you're
is
drawing this
no-
from nothing
there
other
is
than what's
no-
logical to you.
Wrong. I said logic.
To you.
Okay, the only way to defeat an accurate logical syllogism is to defeat the premises. If it's structured properly and the premises are true, then the conclusion follows of a necessity. That's the laws of logic. Okay, unless you're denying the laws of logic, and in that case, then your opinion is irrelevant at this point.
But how are you formulating that thought sequence?
Well, you know what? I was in the middle of telling you, but then we had to go down this line of gobbledygook.
Okay, I don't think you're understanding what I'm asking you right now. I'm asking you,
Yeah.
is this
Yeah, I know
something?
what you're asking.
Okay,
I know
can
what
you-
you're asking.
Can you reiterate to me what I'm asking?
You're trying to tell me that I need somebody else to tell me whether I'm right or
Then
not.
you don't know what I'm asking you. Let me clarify. I'm asking you because I understand that you have a very strong like in your like case understanding of what is logical and what makes sense and systematically how it all comes together, right? So I just want to make sure before I fully listen to you, which I am down to do, is this coming from a place of you're drawing from sources, or this is what you've concluded makes sense? That's what I want to make for sure
Glutius
first.
Maximus of the question we always first ask ourselves, what is the molecular harpsichord of the foie gras in the quantum realm? Speaking from sort of crustacean geist, calcium deficient paradoxical exfoliation, sort of juxtaposition.
Look,
Definitely.
consistent.
Look, listen. Everybody in this room knows scientific that needs an independent variable because it's the natural cause of the effect of the dependable variable, which will be what you are actually observing. And we all know you need the independent variable in order to construct a hypothesis to have a hypothesis test. So we know when you basically said you went on Google and you said that that's not needed to basically construct an experiment, a scientific experiment, we know at that point you're lying. So it's not something that we're making up.
You're acting like I did like a 2-second Google search. I have here like 14 different citations from
But you
National
literally
Center.
can do a 2-second Google search.
I mean,
Yeah,
I'm literally telling you I can
you got
provide these things right
citations.
now.
Yeah, fair enough. But you have citations from non-scientific fields claiming that they don't need to do the strictures of science yet call themselves science, which is the definition of pseudoscience. So people who are in pseudoscientific fields often try to latch on to the vicarious merit of the veracity of the scientific method and attain it for themselves when they don't have the credentials in their field to do so.
Where do you think the where
Where's
do you think the
QE
definition of science coming
Wait a
from?
minute,
Because
hold on.
I have here.
Where is QE?
Huh?
Yeah, all the
You can't just make stuff up. Like, you have to prove
Well,
it.
I mean, look,
Understand that, right?
fair enough. Look, fair enough. I could post, and we actually have it on Hot Dial, tons of quote unquote citations of people claiming contrariwise to your citations. So if we both have competing citations, neither of which is from a particular authoritative thing, then I would side with the inception of the scientific method, the assumption of the scientific philosophy from the dudes who created it themselves, and use my own logic parsed with theirs to come to a conclusion, rather than just have a battle, whose citation are we going to use today?
So I'm just asking what, like, it could even just be the name of an organization and I just want to know where you think that
why are you so stuck? Yeah, exactly. We don't care. See, this is the problem. I could care less
Because
about an
you're
old
saying that
history.
my sources are invalid, like if you guys have a more
No,
legitimate one.
I didn't say that. Okay, notice how what I actually said was
Hmm.
there are citations over here that say this, and there's
Hmm.
citations over here that say this, both from quote unquote prestigious organizations. These citations are competing with each other. And since we don't have the Universal Court of Citation Arbitration available to us right now, right? And nor is there a citation arbitration imposium that we could go to because it doesn't exist, then we have to use our own brains eventually.
Okay, so really you're just saying that this makes more sense because my brain is bigger than yours.
No, I didn't say that at all.
Because I also have sources, you also have sources. You just said that they negate
Right.
each other, but you're very keen on saying, no, this is actually how the scientific method goes based on clashing citations. So I don't know what to make of
No,
that.
that's not what I said. I said the inception of the philosophy.
The philosophy is what we're going with
Yeah.
for hard science.
Okay, let's be clear here, since you don't seem to understand, that the very idea of being able to do science is rooted in philosophy in the first instance, period. The fact that you
Yeah.
just skipped over that and didn't seem to grasp that.
But for it to
is
move
very
into
telling.
hard science, it has to move way beyond that. Like that might be
No,
the
it
root.
doesn't. No, you're missing the point. In order to do anything, to come to arbitrations of propositional truth, you have to have a philosophy of how you're putting the things in sequence. So, for example, if this causes that, then this causes that, right? Like you have to have these types of statements established first, and you have to understand the veracity of these statements and these logical sequences, and that's backed by philosophical stuff. You have to have the philosophy in the first instance before you can even begin to even attempt to do an experiment.
Okay, so you're going based on the root of the philosophical premise.
Well, I mean that's the preordinate knowledge necessary before you can even begin to do science.
But
So
that sounds like that's all
so
like the
grand-
only thing you're really going with as like why it's like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's almost like the founders, the prestigious guys, like the big hoobahs, the big names, the guys who actually invented it and created it and sculpted it. It's almost like they had, like some real insight.
It's almost like she's a pretender clown. Are you still going at it with her? I thought you'd put her on mute long
Listen,
time
I'm
ago.
just saying I'm seeing nowhere that a variable has to be manipulated.
You're a dumb
Really?
fuck. You're seeing nowhere that a variable has to be manipulated. Really?
But she's
Well,
lying because in that same article that
I'm
she's
sorry, I
bringing up,
got this from here on out. Thanks very much. So you're seeing nowhere that a variable has to be manipulated. That's what you said, you dumbass cracker. You would fail. Intro to 5th grade general science. Let's see what we got here. 1 second, please. Hold on. Yeah, you could say that if you wanted. Hold up. Everyone heard what she said, right? She's seeing nowhere that there's variables that have to be manipulated, I suppose, in an experiment. She doesn't even really know what the fucking experiment is. Obviously. All right. Has she got voice text? Live stream voice text?
Yep.
Yeah. All right, there, darling. And I want you to read every single citation, where it's from, and I want you to state it from 17 minutes after the hour, right fucking now.
Dude, why couldn't you just provided this like 2 years ago?
Shut the fuck up. I provided it 16 years ago. Read each citation and snatch your own fucking wig off.
I guess you guys could understand.
Okay, so she said that she sees no variable that has to be manipulated in an experiment. From OpenText BC, notice that the manipulation of an independent variable must involve the active intervention of the researcher. From the Office of Research Integrity, U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Therefore, in experiments, a researcher manipulates an independent variable to determine if it causes a change in the dependent variable. You're fucking dead right there.
Strict
It was
requirement.
at this moment he
Dead
knew.
right there.
He
Dumb
fucked up.
fuck. From BioLibra text, an experiment generally tests how one particular variable is affected by some other specific variable. The affected variable is called the dependent variable or outcome variable. The variable that affects the dependent variable is called the independent variable. It is also called the manipulated variable, you dumbass cow, because this is a variable that is manipulated by the researcher. You would fail Intro to 5th grade General Science. Any other variables, control variable, those are constants that might also affect the dependent variable, like I said, are held constant. So the effects of the independent variable are alone measured. From California State University, Northridge, an independent variable is a factor that is intentionally varied by the experimenter in order to see if it affects the dependent variable. Colorado State, independent, it has it in the fucking name. Independent, in parentheses, manipulated variable. You dumbass cow. Varied, changed by the scientist. From Rutgers, in an experiment, the independent variable is the variable that is varied or manipulated by the researcher. You fucking glue sniffer. Do I need to go on? Get your dumb ass out of here.
So we have Owl in the panel here. Owl was saying your citations were a word salad.
Yeah, because she's a fucking glue sniffer.
Oh wait, where are the citations?
Shut the fuck up.
Before we go
in
on,
the voice text.
yeah, just 1 second, friends. So before we go on, we did establish that there are things called pseudoscience, and that pseudoscience is fields that are misrepresented as having gone through the strictures of the scientific method when they aren't. And then we had citations, quote unquote, or references presented to us that were from fields that we know they can't access the independent variable. The citations that said you don't need the independent variable are from the fields that are, by definition, of pseudoscience. So they are attempting to steal vicariously the merit of the true scientific method and apply it to their fields erroneously. Very interesting that human beings would actually try to puff themselves up in their fields that their fields are science when they aren't, which is why the philosopher who invented the term pseudoscience specifically said when people aren't going through a scientific experiment and they saying they are, they're pseudoscience. So those citations that said we don't need an independent variable are actually just proving his philosophy correct, that they are pseudoscientists.
Gotcha, bitch.
Sorry, I'm just reading. I'm seeing so far of what I'm reading right now that it doesn't say that it's.
Shut the fuck up. You got textual pareidolia, dipshit. Get your ass out of here. You're not coming off mood.
Oh shit.
Tired of listening to your dumb ass. Go back
the name
to
of that
fucking
guy?
5th grade and have your parents probably paid them off. Fucking clown.
Hey, what was the name of that guy? Do you know off the top of your head? The
Who?
pseudoscience framer. The guy who framed pseudoscience?
Framed it.
Yeah, was that
Oh.
that wasn't Popper, was it?
I guess he said it in more or less. I guess you could say that. I mean, if you had a citation from him, but his overall general works is, yeah.